Welcome to Capitalizing Your Life, the podcast that shows you how to take control of your money, build lasting wealth, and create financial freedom using the infinite banking concept. If you're ready to make your cash flow work for you instead of someone else, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Jim Oliver, host of Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Jim is also a good friend of mine and mentor. We meet regularly, and I just figured I'd get him on the podcast today. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. Excited to be here to help people and help the audience understand how to create some freedom, some wealth and freedom.
Yeah, so normally when we're talking, I always feel that by the end of it, I was like, man, I wish we would have just recorded that just to be able to get it on. And I think the main thing we've been talking about recently is, how to fix $1 million problems. And really, like, what does that even mean? Like, after I leave the call, I'm like, what does that even mean, what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you really look at people that, more money, more problems, right? Wasn't that a song?
Yeah.
And when you look at highly profitable business owners, that's like one kind of sector of people. And let's just say they have $1 million or more of personal income, strong cash flow. They have tax pain because if you're making over $1 million of, quote, income, you have tax pain. Maybe you have retained earnings building up. You need liquidity and you need control, right? I mean, maybe they want to grow, but these are contractors, medical practices, law firms, manufacturers. I mean, there's all kinds of people like that. So there's like those kinds of people, they have $1 million problems. Real estate investors and operators, people that are doing large acquisitions, renovations, value add projects. They get frequent capital calls, which Glenn.
Yeah.
They need bridge financing and they need cash reserves for vacancies and opportunities. And then I would say the third kind of section of people are when you have a big liquidity event, right? So maybe you sell your business or you get a big commission year. I mean, there are people out there that work on commission that, they might get a 7-figure commission, on selling some huge thing. Or, maybe a broker selling a big property, right? Or you get an exit bonus, right? Or an inheritance. I wish I was getting one of those. An asset sale, something like that. And then the fourth and kind of final area that I see that people have kind of $1 million problems. I'm not the final. I'm going to add one kind of like asterisk at the end. But family offices, affluent families, IBC can, for them, and the $1 million problem that they can solve is liquidity reserve, collateral pool, legacy planning, and some kind of intergenerational transfer strategy. And so I think that those are kind of the primary 4 areas that people have $1 million problems. But there are also what I would call kind of long runway $1 million problems. And what I mean by that is people that have discipline that are like surgeons, top attorneys, top salespeople, executives, entertainers. And they don't just need returns, they need control, structure, and forced capitalization. And that's what I used to do a lot with the NFL players when I lived in Colorado. And that forced capitalization, that's something that most athletes need.
Yeah. And I can relate. I definitely don't have exactly $1 million problems, but I can tell you that there's times like there's the one that comes to mind for me is I, make $20,000, $30,000 in November. And I ended up having to put out $90,000 that same month. So it's kind of like, how do I control these, unexpected, like you're excited that you're starting to get some occupancy up, that your cash flow is coming in, and then these unexpected expenses come up, which aren't terrible. And it's not a terrible investment, the $90,000. It was like, this has to happen to get to the next level or the next level of income or, something happened. And, that $90,000 expense is not an expense. It's actually an investment. But at the same time, you have to spend it. And it was unexpected at the same time. So it's like, this is, in my opinion, the best way to store your capital for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's the best way to store and control your capital, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing that people, I don't want to say they discount, Glenn, but control, liquidity, leverage, those aren't just words. It's thinking long term, having money sitting dead in banks. I mean, it seems simple, but simplicity is elusive sometimes. And people say, well, yeah, but I feel it makes me emotionally feel good to have $2 million sitting in the bank. So I just know that no matter what, I'm okay. Okay, well, the bank loves you and they appreciate you. And every time you come in there, they'll smile and give you some coffee or whatever you want because you're their favorite people. But then when you take control of that, then you don't need the banks. And whoever controls the money makes the money, right? So if we control the money, leverage it, create velocity of money, and keep doing more and more deals. But, Glenn, when I think about $1 million problems, if I said to you, I want you to put $1 million into an investment, and that investment is going to pay you, let's say, $350,000 in perpetuity, right? I mean, for how long? I mean, maybe forever for your lifetime, right?
Yeah.
If you had the $1 million somewhere, would you put it in that investment?
100%. Yes.
100%, right? Because I'm getting 35% cash on cash reserve.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm going to do a deal like that closing April 1, that exact deal. Actually, it's probably going to be better than that. That's just where it's going to start. Okay, it's going to start at 350 distribution, but it's buying a company. It's already negotiated the price. Right now, we're just trying to negotiate the terms a little bit. And the most that I would have to put in is $1 million. Okay, so now where am I going to get that $1 million? If I go get that $1 million out of my checking account, then whatever that checking account was going to be, the access to that checking account, the liquidity of that checking account, that all goes away. Now that money is in this deal. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, but that's how people do it every day. People that don't understand infinite banking. But what if I said, hey, I have this money in kind of like I'm not claiming it's tax-free, but it's like kind of like a tax-free checking account that's actually earning money and it's growing compounded every day, guaranteed. And because I have that account, I can go take somebody else's money, their $1 million, and I can go buy that asset in an interest-only agreement. Meaning that if I wanted to take the 350 for 3 years or 4 years and pay off, depending on interest and everything, 3 or 4 years, pay off that $1 million debt and then just have money coming in and not have that debt, well, I could do that if I want to. And by the way, if I did that, if I just delayed my gratification of the distribution for 3 years, paid off the debt, how much money do I have in that investment making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? Nothing, right? I have nothing in it. So when we think about $1 million problems and people who need to solve $1 million problems, to me, that's $1 million problem. I need $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, but what if I'm that real estate investor that has 1,000, 2,000, whatever number of doors, right? And they're making $1 million a month. Okay, I'm just trying to make these numbers up.
Yeah.
What do I do with it? Put it back in other deals? Yeah. But if I were going to put it back in other deals, how would I do that? What would be the best avenue? What would be the best holding tank for that money? Where is a holding tank that I'm guaranteed to be able to leverage it whenever I want, where I'm in control of how it goes out and how it comes back in? There's only one place to do that, and that's in infinite banking.
Yep.
And so, to me, people used to ask me, Glenn, this question, and I would say that this is a great question for somebody sitting there with more than $1 million sitting in their checking account dying. People would ask me, why isn't everybody doing this? And I would say, everybody that understands it is. And that's my honest answer. So why isn't everybody with millions of dollars in a checking account sitting there and it's dying, not doing this? Everyone who understands it is. So what our job and our passion in our firm and Breakaway Wealth and your podcast is to teach people about this. If every single person that understands it is doing it, then what's our challenge? Get people to understand it. Get people to understand how it solves $1 million problems.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I started this journey of infinite banking. Well, I could tell you that I was doing my own form of infinite banking through other assets. And, what I would do as a real estate investor is I would do lines of credits against assets. But the problem behind that is the asset ends up going away or the bank is putting a limit on your line of credit. And that's what was happening for me. I would have like a $50,000 line of credit, and then I wanted to make it a $100,000 line. And if you don't answer the bank the right way, or if the collateral is not good enough for them, they're going to just tell you no. And then they might even shut the line down once they find out what you're really doing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're not actually putting this into your primary residence. You're going to go out and invest in real estate. No, you can't do that. And I've done that for 10 years before I practiced infinite banking concept through the properly structured life insurance. So it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, why wouldn't you just do what's called velocity banking? But the problem with velocity banking or, borrowing against other assets is that assets eventually go away. You're going to sell the S&P 500, even I believe one of the better, safer places to invest in the stock market is going to have fluctuations. It's going to get cut in half. And then what happens? You're going to have higher interest on your lines. You're going to have more illiquidity that you've been placing all your capital into. And I have a good friend of mine that he compares IBC to infinite banking. And I'm like, it's not, I mean, the S&P 500 with infinite banking. And it's like, well, you're comparing two different things. Like you're talking about the stock market that goes up and down, and you're talking about a properly structured life insurance product that consistently grows, and it's predictable. You're growing it against a cash value that never stops growing, and it's always there, so it's like the guarantees that come with, that process.
Yeah, I mean, let's just compare them. Let's just compare the traditional system. So in the traditional system, you earn money somehow, right? Hand it to banks, Wall Street, retirement accounts, lenders, advisors, brokers, whatever your label is for your people. Then you ask permission to access it. You accept their rules, timing, fees, underwriting. You talked about underwriting, volatility, right?
Yeah.
And the result of that is you don't have any control or very little control. You have dependency. You have captivity. You have more friction when opportunity shows up. So then, compared to what? Infinite banking, like where I would say owner-controlled system, not a consumer-based system, right? So you build your own capital reservoir. You keep money in a system you control. You use policy loans when opportunities hit. And I just did this again. I mean, I've done 3 loans in the last 60 days for opportunities. And then you repay on your schedule. I just told them what I wanted to repay, right? And what I did is I came up with an interest rate that was high, and I decided it was 3 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year. I mean, I just refinanced some trucks in the trash company, just like things like that. And then you create your own financing behavior, what works for you. And what I love about that is, when you look at the results compared, more control, more liquidity access, more certainty, better long-term cash flow discipline, right? Because you're learning that, hey, when I deploy money, I got to have it come back with more money. I mean, it's not that. It's, like the traditional thing says, well, what was your return, Glenn? And what I want to ask people is, who controlled the capital while it was at work? I did. That's the shift, okay? Because a lot of wealthy people, they don't just win on returns. They win, really win on control of cash flow. Timing, that. Access, leverage, not being forced to sell. Think about that. Not begging the banks. And $1 million problems, these things are just magnified. It's just magnified. We can talk about how somebody spends so much of their money over their lifetime financing cars, and that's a problem. Okay, but when you're making the kind of money that people that have millions of dollars sitting around,
yeah,
that's not the biggest problem, and you're staring you in the face.
Yeah.
The biggest problem staring you in the face is everything that we're talking about. And the only way to solve it is to take control. And when you control something, you have freedom. And freedom scares some people, but not people that have millions of dollars. Come on.
Yeah.
That doesn't scare them. That's how they got it.
Yep.
Unless they were lucky and happened to be the janitor at Google when it started. But honestly, I can help those people, but it's hard to get people that happened to, what I call the lucky. It's hard to get them to really understand, because they actually think, hey, I was just lucky. I'm really lucky. I'll be lucky again. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Just something to make it repeatable. Like what I've been kind of focusing on, because I have a big pool of capital. I manage 600 units. We have $400,000 coming into our bank account every month. So it's kind of like a lot of it is partners. I have probably 60 partners involved. So I always think to myself, how do I recapture the interest that comes through my system?
Yeah.
And it's like, do I need to keep growing, stressing myself out, or do I just need to gain more control of my system?
More.
And I think with your book that's coming out soon is Ownership is 100% my current problem right now. And that's why I love IBC. Like I think to myself, I don't need to grow for growth's sake. I just need to recapture the interest that's coming through my life. And really, it's a crazy amount. It's a big number. And how do I do that? We'll just talk about property taxes. I pay over $200,000 throughout the whole portfolio in property taxes just once a year. Then you have insurance premiums. That's probably another $150,000 to $200,000. So how do we recapture that and have a reserve that's always there, that's predictable, that is going to flow, and then also create an opportunity fund to be able to grow the portfolio on top of that?
Yeah. I agree 100%. It's funny, the times in our lives where we make great progress is when we change our mindset, right? Or our belief, our paradigm in something. Stephen Covey, 40 years ago, whenever he wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about paradigm shift. And that was a hot buzzword for a while. And now nobody talks about paradigm shift. But if what you thought to be true turned out not to be true, when would you want to know about it? As soon as possible. So when I look at IBC, we're not trying to convince anybody to do IBC. We're trying to educate people to the point where they come to one of 2 conclusions, because there's only one of 2, is this is for me or it's not for me. And the only way that they say this is for me is they understand how they're going to use it.
They understand.
Right? And I love when these marketers, Glenn, and they get on there, and I'm not saying they're not better marketers than me, but because they probably are. But they get on the internet, and whether it's YouTube or Instagram or something, and they talk about the insurance company or the insurance contract or the policy, or their policy is better than somebody else's policy, or 90-10 versus 60-40 versus, and they want to talk about that all day long. You know why they talk about that? Because they really don't understand infinite banking. And they haven't ever actually used it to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now, by the grace of God, I've been able to do that, and not by my own doing, just because, thank God for putting Nelson Nash in my life, and then listening over and over and over and over again, and then doing something that most people never do anyway, is take action.
Yeah.
Is actually go out and do it. And that's what you did.
Yep.
And that's why it impressed me so much with you, is you took your system, you took your 401k, dead money, and you turned it into a cash flow system.
Hey guys, if you'd like to learn more about the infinite banking concept and how to flow your capital through your own financing system, my team and I are here to help. With over 35 years of experience, we can guide you in building a properly structured whole life policy tailored to you and your family. See the scheduling link below. Now, back to the show. Literally, as you talk, I always think about I did a ton of research. It's once you start to understand it, you start to realize how much money I wanted to put into it is really what it turned into.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to put in every dollar I possibly can. And then I had to pump the brakes, and I said, I need to do research before I find myself 5 years down the road, screwed, is what I thought to myself. It's like, for anybody, I would imagine Jim's the same way. I already know he is like, how's this person trying to screw me over is really the thought process. And I was just texting with a buddy of mine. He was just like, everybody, the more capital you have, the more people want to take advantage of. So that's really the thought process. So how am I always think of the situation, it's like, this sounds too good to be true type thing. So I really dug down deep. I met a ton of, IBC. I don't know, I wouldn't call them all IBC practitioners, but what I did is I found Nick and Jim. First, I found Jim. I heard him on a podcast. And I was like, this guy actually sounds like he's, doing the deal, buying businesses, buying real estate. Whenever I first started listening to Jim, he talked about mobile home parks a lot. So that's when I started really getting into it. But when I started working with Nick and Jim, I thought to myself, these guys are actually killing it outside of, life insurance sales. And that's the main thing, is just I sensed that they did not need me buying any premium from them. They were literally going out, and they're driven from a bigger vision compared to just, who wants to stop everything they're doing to sell life insurance is really the story.
Yeah.
So it's it turned into a calling for me as well. And that's why I started working with Nick and Jim, just because they were, for one, I wanted to go where they were going. And then also just the fact that they were doing what I also wanted to do as well.
Yeah. It's funny because it's how many people out there really don't practice what they preach, right? We see this in faith all the time, and I think we struggle in faith about it, but how many people out there talk about doing infinite banking, talk about how great it is, and then they don't really do it? 90%?
Yeah.
If you challenge them, and if you're somebody, you're, again, one of those people, business owner, and that business owner thing is so wide, right? It's so wide.
Yeah.
Could be a rancher, could be a farmer, could be a doctor, could be, It's just everybody. So I'm speaking to everybody. If you're sitting out there though, and you have millions of dollars flowing through your business, and then you have millions of dollars flowing out in the form of taxes over your lifetime or over the maybe just a year, you can do nothing and you can accept that traditional planning model and good luck. I've done that. I mean, I've seen it for 38 years, man. Just never seen anybody get wealthy that way. And honestly, you really don't keep your wealth that way. But the people that take it to the next step. And I think that's why a lot of second and third generation businesses fail. By the time the second or third generation is running it, that kind of creativity that was necessary to build the book, well, then it dies. It's got to keep on being creative. It's got to keep on having velocity of money. It's got to keep on keeping that money in motion, right? It might take a long time for it to die. I mean, look at the Vanderbilts. It took their money a long time to die.
Definitely. I think about that regularly with my kids. And I think that sometimes you just have to, this is a little bit more off topic, but I would say that it's like, I have to create a system that rewards based on certain actions. And like, I can't just follow what my neighbors are doing with their kids, because I don't think if I'm trying to be in the 1%, you have to do what 99% of the population is not doing. So it's like, it's hard to follow somebody else's lead as you're, growing that generational wealth, but also creating systems in place to give a little bit of difficulty to the next generation to grow,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, the shift, right?
Yeah.
And again, let's just use the book for a second.
Yep.
And the ownership framework is really 5 shifts. First, it's understanding, then it's vision, then it's banking, then it's assets, then it's ownership, right? Now, I'm not saying those aren't the chapters, that's not the thing, but this is the philosophy, right? So number 1 is you have to understand the problem before you can appreciate the solution. So you have to understand how banks, taxes, Wall Street works against you. Then you have to create a true vision of what would financial freedom look like for you, right? What you've done with mobile home parks, with real estate, with, controlling that cash flow. And then you create a system that facilitates that, i.e. owner-controlled banking system, infinite banking. And then you build cash flowing assets. Then you become a true owner, investor, not just an operator of that business and being overwhelmed, right? I'm not telling you you're not going to be overwhelmed. Okay. You will be overwhelmed at times.
Yeah.
But you have the control in the system to get yourself out of overwhelm, right? That's the difference. Let's say that I could buy this business, right? This business that I'm talking about, and I need $1 million. And I need to go borrow it from my 401k or I need to borrow it from a bank or whatever it is for the down payment. And they say no. Now what? Now what? See, the thing is that when you're controlling it, it's not about, can I go get the money? I have the money. Should I do the deal? So now it's all about due diligence.
Yeah.
And if it's not a yes or a no, it's a hell yes or a hell no. Right? And if it's a hell yes, which by the way, putting $1 million in, I don't need the 350. Okay. So I can just pay off that debt to myself if I want to over 3 years or whatever it is with, 5 point whatever percent interest. And now I have an asset that's cash flowing that I don't have any money in. Right? I mean, because I let the cash flow pay it all.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even the interest. So I literally have no money in it. So what's my rate of return? Infinite. Right? That's why Nelson called it infinite banking but my point to that, Glenn, is I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking 3 or 4 years, have that paid off. And then I have a really, really nice cash flow as long as that business is in place. And the traditional thinking is, well, you buy it for $8 million and you sell it for 30. Okay. I can make that decision too. I get to make that decision. Right? I might do an installment sale because it's smart. Then I'm going to pay less tax.
Yeah.
And I always have the business to take back if they don't pay me. And hopefully that keeps my eye on the ball a little bit more on the business. It's a win-win. Win for the seller, win for the buyer. So there's all these things out here. And if you're sitting there in the audience and you're like, I don't even know how to do that. I don't know how to start. I don't know what first action to take, whatever it is. It's teach yourself about it. Learn about it. Call Glenn, call me. How do people structure seller finance, acquisition of real estate and businesses? How do I use my banking system? How do I capitalize my banking system? I promise you one thing. Every single person that I've talked to for 20 whatever years of infinite banking, no one knew exactly how they were going to capitalize it when they first started talking to me. Not one person.
Nope. Yeah, I also, like, for me, the first year was I was a little nervous, and then after that, it just became easier and easier. And really, what keeps coming to mind is the person with the capital makes the rules.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it sounds like Jim was telling us about. The other thought is that I know a few guys that are like different levels of like super high income earners, and I can tell you that the bigger pool of capital you have, the more ownership you receive. Like, it's like you're not writing $1 million check to get, a small percentage, unless it's a big deal. But I would say that most of the time you have more say. Like, you can actually make sure that the right person's hired for that position, the right manager. But then when you get to the smaller check sizes, it's like if it was like a $50,000 check, you're not going to have much say. It's just like you just go for the ride, and that's kind of how it works. So for me, I've been thinking more and more about like, how am I able to write bigger and bigger checks and own more and more of the asset, and really become more of an equity owner compared to an operator that works for other people's investment. And that's kind of like how I got into this whole process. And really, that was the thing that, I interviewed about 100 people before I started Capitalizing Your Life podcast. And everybody I was interviewing, these people are, they're real estate syndicators, not all of them, but most of them didn't have any money either. So I'm like listening to these people with advice on how to invest in real estate. But these guys were just raising capital to buy real estate with other people's money, which is one way to do it, which is the way I did it. But at the same time, I said, I need to go to the next level. I need to become the owner, the guy that's writing the check, and to build out my own system. And that's a long-term plan compared to, growing through real estate syndications. And I just think that when you're able to write the bigger checks, you have a lot more upside. It just becomes that way.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And here's the thing is, the first deal you do isn't going to be as big as the last deal you do.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to have long-term thinking, and think, even if you're 60 years old, I'm 60 years old, and let's say somebody was brand new, they're just getting started. But I said in 10 years, let's assume you're healthy and you got enough money to pay your bills and stuff like that. But you're going to get into real estate and you're 60 years old. And I said to you, by the time you're 70, for sure by the time you're 70, you can have cash flow that exceeds your ideal standard of living. If you say, no, that's not soon enough. I want to retire in 2 years. Okay, that might be a fantasy. That might be like, like, I don't know. But if it's, I'm going to take my $5 million and I'm going to give it to a money babysitter and they're going to give me 5 to 7% every year net, that's a bad plan.
No.
Right? It's a bad plan, even if you're 60.
Yeah.
And think about what we're told. Hey, as you get older, you got to reduce your risk, your market risk, right? And then, but why do they say that younger people don't have to reduce their market risk? Because you have time to make up for the mistakes. Now, doesn't that sound stupid?
It does sound stupid.
It sounds stupid. It sounds stupid. You're going to lose money and you got time to recover.
No.
Versus, how about we bulletproof this thing?
100%.
Right? How about we make this bulletproof? And we might add $1,000 a monthly income, $1,000 a monthly income, $1,000 a monthly income. But guess what? We're making progress. And that $1,000 a monthly income isn't going away.
Controlling your situation.
Exactly. So, I think that one of the sad things that I see, Glenn, is I see people that get to be about my age and then they start to figure it out. And then they think it's too late. But you know who's telling them it's too late? Is Wall Street, their taxes, their friends, all their people. They're telling them it's too late.
99%.
Yeah. And think about this for a second. We've all heard of KFC, right? And Harlan Sanders didn't start KFC until he was 65 years old after he had been turned down. Nobody wanted his chicken recipe. 65. He was broke at 65. Okay, so my point is that what I was told when I was a kid was a lie. Get an education, get a good job, live below your means, which I'm not saying is a bad idea, okay, but save, that's a bad idea. And forever, 20, 30, 40 years until you have enough money, and then live off that money for the rest of your life and hope that you don't run out of money before you die. Now, think about if you related that to your marriage. Okay, we're going to get married, we're going to have a couple kids, we're going to just go through the motions, and then we're going to hope that we don't hate each other before we die.
We're going to suck it up for 40 years.
And then we're going to suck it up for 40 years. And by the way, people do that too. It's like, hey, I'm going to focus on my children. Well, no, you better focus on that romance between you and your partner, your spouse. Because if not, the children are going to be damaged, but it's not going to be for the reasons that you're trying to protect them. It's going to be because there's no real marriage there. And so it's the same thing in our lives. If 50% of marriages fail, then why would we do the same thing that everybody else is doing? You don't, right? And so if most people don't have not most people, 99.9% of people out there say they don't have enough money. So why would you do it the way they're doing it? You got to take control. Well, you don't want to take control. Why? Because you don't have confidence. You don't have confidence that you know what to do with it. So, okay, I don't have confidence that I could go climb Mount Everest. But if you told me that if I did, you'd give me $1 billion, I'll come up with a plan. And you know what? My number one thing that I'm going to spend money on is I'm going to get the best Sherpa in the world. I'm going to get the guy that's man or woman who's been up and down that mountain more times safely than anybody else, because I'm going with them. Right. And so that's the way I look at this experience of doing it. You know, like, yeah, I'm not a billionaire, but my lifestyle is just not that fancy. Right. I mean, I do everything I want to do. I drive the cars I want to drive. I live in the house I want to live in. I go to the restaurants I want to go in. I never have any stress about it. I never worry about it. That kind of sounds like freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, on that note, we're running out of time, but could keep talking to you all day. I would say where you can find Jim is at the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. You hear all of his way of thinking. And then if you wanted to schedule a call with me or Jim, there's a link below, and we're happy to jump on a call with you guys.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thanks, Glenn.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Capitalizing Your Life podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone who you think would enjoy listening.